Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Dogurai for the Nintendo Switch. And if you're thinking to yourself, man, that's a clever title, what is that? Well, if you have a main character that's a dog, and you have a main character that's also a samurai, and you put them together, you get a Dogurai. And if you thought that was clever, just stick around for the review. As Dogurai is a retro-inspired, classic-inspired kind of title, we really do go pretty light on the backstory before we get into the gameplay. Pretty much to know anything about the game, you'd really have to read the eShop description, which is in a dystopian future where all the cops and all the soldiers were replaced by robots. Dogurai, who is an ex-Special Forces samurai dog, has to go in and save his kidnapped buddy. And as a not-so-spoiler, that buddy becomes a playable character after beating the game. But in order to be able to change out your main character from Bones, the former Special Forces samurai dog, you'll have to chew your way through 8 overarching levels. There is your introductory level, which is pretty much your baptism into this punishing platformer. And after beating the introductory level, there's another 4 levels that you can play in pretty much any order, which will set you in motion to play through the last 3 phases of the game that introduce you to that big final baddie and give you that shot at rescuing your pal. But just because there's only 8 levels in the game does not mean it's going to be a cakewalk or a quick run to just go and get your buddy back, because every single one of the levels has its own theme, and not just in the visuals. In some levels you might be cruising through mountains on motorcycles, or you might be running from your life across lava flows, and if you didn't hate ice levels before, there's an ice level that you will hate. Like I said before, every single level in the game has its own unique theme, its own color palette, its own enemies, traps, and environmental hazards. Which means every single level is going to have to get you to tweak your own skills as a player, because from the very beginning of the game to the end of the game, all you have is a jump, a double jump, and your sword. There are no increases in powers, gaining special abilities, or anything like that. Though a cool thing to note, despite you do have a pretty spongy HP bar, is that with your sword you can not only attack enemies, but you can even cut ranged attacks in half. So as you make your way through some pretty tight and perilous platforming through this side-scrolling adventure, developing your reflexes and perfecting that expert timing is not only going to save you for the ranged attacks from random mobs, but it's also going to help you out in the boss rooms. Just like the level design, just like the level's coloring, all of the bosses are pretty darn unique. And if I had to say it, I'd probably have to admit that they are my favorite part of the game. And while you can pick at them with your sword in those random moments and random openings, the real way to take off large chunks of HP is going to be, again, with some pretty precise timing. Every once in a while, for certain mobs and every single boss, there's going to be an opening that if you catch it, you can pull out some pretty cool Matrix-style moves that rely on a multiple hit system with the directional keys. If you get a few hits in, you'll take off a decent chunk of HP, but if you manage to complete the combo, you can pull off some pretty devastating attacks. One final note though, as both the boss fights and the levels themselves will take multiple tries and a lot of memorization to complete, I personally was very thankful that there are 2 difficulty modes in the game. Normal mode gives you infinite lives, so no matter where you die, you start over at the nearest checkpoint. And while this may seem like a pretty juvenile baby mode for the game, this is a punishing platformer. So infinite lives and actually finishing the game, or playing on hard mode where you only get 6 lives per entire world area, well, that decision will be up to you, but I am not nearly that skilled as a gamer. But anyway, moving on from the game's general mechanics, it's time to talk about the visuals and the audio. Obviously, the visuals are going to be a huge sell to certain nostalgia buff gamers, and they might be a bit of a turn-off to others. And I have to admit, while I really did like the bright, colorful monochromatics, some of them were pretty shocking, and I think I scarred my corneas during that red level. But other than that, with the framing of the game, it felt like I was playing on a Super Game Boy in an old SNES. The sound as well is perfectly suited and perfectly retro, but as it is perfectly retro, it's probably not much to speak about. And now it's time for everybody's favorite portion of the review, the critical portion of the critical in-depth review. And in all honesty, there's really not much to critique. The game captures exactly what it was going for, which is a nostalgic Game Boy era game. It has simple mechanics, it's short, but it's so difficult you're not going to finish it quickly. And as its objectively short length could be considered to be one of its only flaws, the addition of an additional playable character with a completely different attack style really goes a long way into adding just a ton of replay value for the game. Not only that, and something I haven't mentioned yet, is there are also multiple endings and hidden collectibles all throughout the game. So if you crushed it and thought you were done and thought it was over and it was too short, maybe you could take another stab at being a completionist and seeing if you can get a different ending. All in all though, looking back at my time with Dogurai, I'd have to say it was a really great experience. It is difficult, but it's difficult in that way, especially because of the infinite lives and the checkpoints, that you just really want to have another go at it. You will die hundreds and hundreds of times, but it's never because the game did something cheap, it's because you just kind of messed up as player. And it's that feeling of dying over something that you know you could have got right that just keeps you coming back and coming back for more. And especially for games in this genre, it's that sensation that lets you know it's just a good game. So if you are a platforming fan, if you're a nostalgia fan, if you're like me and you actually have your Game Boy just sitting out so you can play it whenever you want, Dogurai is definitely a game that you're going to want to have on your radar. I'm not sure if it's still on sale for about $2.49 right now, but even its regular list price of just below $5 it's pretty worth it. But that about does wrap up the review of Dogurai, now on the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed the review, or especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw me a comment or a like to show your support. And don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content, because we've got new reviews coming out every single week. And with thousands of indie games out there, whether it's an easy hard pass or an unforgettable gem, you're definitely going to find out about it right here. And whether you're a new or an existing fan of the Budget Gamer channel, if you like what we do and you want to help us do what we do, which is cover hundreds of indie games that no one's ever even heard of before, I'd be proud to welcome you into our small crew of Patreons. But anyway, this has been the Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.